well, which would most likely be our final day of this week. Next week, we get a little more extended stay, so I may just throw in a Friday episode, ladies and gentlemen. But thank you very much for joining me here on Talk Live, live on IG, YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment on the road to 1,000 subscribers. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. We are back. Let me just cue up this thing right away. Sponsored by Duntalk, DUNTALK.com. Let me just do this quickly here. Yes, I'm going to do this in the background. How y'all doing this week? Let me see. History, thank you. And we go here. Bang, bang, bang. And bang, bang. Bang, 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 bang. Bang, 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 bang. Well, I hope all is well with you this week, guys. Thank you very much for joining me here on Talk Live, live on IG, YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment on the road to 1,000 subscribers. And let me just do, you know what? Let me do this here. Yes. Oh my God. Here we go. There we go. Fantastic. There we go. Thank you. And we go here. And we go here.
If you love me, the L.
Let's just mute this for a second here. We have something in the background going on. Yes, I know. Here we are. Perfect timing. Just perfect timing. Yes. Let's go back. Just a little bitty bit. Here we go. Yes. So thank you very much for joining me here in Talk Live, live on IG, YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Sorry about the delay. We are back. We are live. We got everything propped up. Yeah. So we're just gonna get into this little thing before we get into the Diddy Trial recap. Just want to check this thing out, and this is from yesterday's show. She's a blister, the Corey Holcomb 5150 show. If you ever didn't get a chance to see Corey Holcomb and the 5150 show, you need to, because quite simply, it is it is funny as hell. Corey Holcomb, one of the better comedians out there on the circuit. And yeah, he has his own YouTube channel, which is getting hundreds of thousands of views these days, and really is taking over Black YouTube. Quite simply, and because he's funny as hell and he's real. And he had a little chat regarding K. Michelle yesterday. And I failed to mention it yesterday, but I thought I'd get it in here today because it was quite funny as I overheard it this afternoon when I was at the gym. So I'm going to play it up right now. So we're going to go to the YouTube channel. Bang. I'm going to do this. Bang. Here we are. There we go. And we're going to play this out here. Corey Holcomb doing wonderful things in YouTube streams. Please subscribe to Corey Holcomb. He is just killing the game right now at 444,000 subscribers. Listen, if you haven't heard Corey Holcomb by now, and you're not on Black YouTube, I don't know what you're doing. But you need to change your ways and listen to this man every Tuesday night, because this guy is a killer. With I believe it's Kenny and with Lana. But anyways, we're gonna get their names in a bit. I'll be back. But Corey Holcomb on the K. Michelle appearance on yes, and what the hell did I say here? Anyways, let's play it out here. Let's go.
Evolutionary theory, and the other one is this thing called the field technique. So basically, her being around Cam, he represents everything that she would want in a man: physically dominant, money, and so
they say everything but that, Craig. What you saying? Cam Newton get to fuck the bitches he want to fuck because he about 6'6". He got money. Yeah. He got swag.
Dang, is he that tall?
Stop it. So Cam Newton, them motherfuckers, that nigga RG3 say, this nigga a whole unit.
Yeah, he a big old nigga.
This ain't no regular type dude. That's why I was at awe when I saw him. I was like, man, this motherfucker used to run motherfuckers over. When he was at Auburn, if you know about football, you be like, and that's the quarterback.
Yeah, he run over
that's
linebackers.
Said Ram Newton. A couple people said.
Ram Newton. Yeah, they gonna go in on him, but I'm saying, like, Cam Newton, you got to explain that, bro. Or you don't have to, but it'd be good if you did. Because I saw it. I was like, damn, I think I hurt his feelings when I said we'll like guys. But he sit up here and let that fake doctor and this K. Michelle and so many of these scum of the earth.
But
these women, I just put it like that, they get to say what they want to say in your face. And I received that. It's like being a gentleman is one thing, but letting them simp you out is something we should talk about. But men should talk about it.
But see, that's a strategy,
Thanks,
Corey.
bro.
It's called the fill technique.
Give it to me, Craig.
Covert narcissistic women use this
Before he gets into the fill technique, and this is why I really want you to listen to this, because I thought this explanation by Craig is absolutely fantastic. Now I'm getting the names now. It was again Cam Newton show. This is indeed Craig, and he's going and Darlene Ortiz. Yes, indeed. Now I get the description. So again, the way he describes his fill technique is class, and you know what? It's typical, very typical of most black women, and this is exactly their dating strategy. Let's hear it.
Technique. It's an acronym. The P stands for protector, the H stands for hero, the I stands for integrity, and the L stands for love. So when she starts talking about not liking black men and putting herself in the position of being a victim, she's sending coded language or coded messaging to him that she wants to be saved.
She said that she's turned down so many guys to be engaged to her. Right. And I'm saying, like, if you show the guy who's willing to turn you into his wife, everything gonna show itself. Because only a fool would wife a woman who's sitting in front of another man like that.
Yeah, so she wants to be saved. The P is for protector, the H is for hero, the I is for integrity, and the L is for love. So she sends out that she can't find nobody. That's going to send a message to a dominant male who has it in his track record. He has a hella baby mamas. He's known to save a bitch. So she's going to put herself as a damsel in distress. Then she's going to speak to his ability or his yearning to want to be a hero because he's a dominant male. And then later she'll play on his integrity. You told me you would do this. You said you would do that. Yeah. If you're the man you said you were, you would do what you said you would do. And then if you love me, the L, you would do that. So that's all a play. She's making a play at a nigga that has a bag, and she's doing it on TV because she wants the nigga to pick up on the messaging.
Craig.
Absolutely outstanding deduction of K. Michelle's machinations. That's exactly what K. Michelle was doing on that show. She was trying to promote herself, yes, because she is in show business. She's going to talk about her album, how she, her transition to country music, yes. But indeed, she's 43 years old. She has a child. I am corrected. She does have a child, and without man. So guess what? She wants to be the 10th baby mama for Cam Newton. Craig is absolutely correct. That fill technique is absolutely trying to obtain the services, the semen of one Cam Newton. The protection, provision, procreation, and problem solving of a Cam Newton. She don't care if he got 10 kids. If he could take care of them and she's number one, she don't care. Most black women don't care. Matter of fact, most women don't care these days. Most modern women don't care. As long as you pay the bills, you can have your children willy-nilly. And that's exactly what K. Michelle was doing on that show yesterday. Listen, let my man Corey Holcomb tell it.
You brilliant. Well put, brother. Because that's exactly what it is. You know what I'm saying? Sitting up there crying and shit. She has the worst voice I've ever heard in my life. Now, I don't know if she sings good, because it would be unfair if I said something about her singing. I bet she probably can sing, but when she talk, Oh, I can honestly say, I've never heard a more wretched voice. I've never heard nobody sound like that before. Listen to this woman speak, and it is. Now, people going to be like, Corey, you jealous. People going to be like, whatever. All right, I'll take that.
They might already be fucking. Because what else is she doing on the show? She ain't got nothing popping.
Nah, if she was fucking, she'd have bust him out.
Well, she's got a new country album, and they've been sweating her because they're telling her, why are you doing country? But she is from the South.
She doing country because, goddamn it, Beyonce got paid off that country shit. So now the nigga bitches is out there saying, you know what? I bet I could do it. Now she claiming her country roots. And I seen this.
But she has some receipts.
I know. I've seen this. I seen her on some interview with some white lady, and the white lady disrespected her.
Yeah, she started out yodeling. She actually used to yodel.
Well, she need to yodel instead of talk. Because, like, so many of these women. I remember that girl. Look, I ain't. Who was that, her?
Yeah.
That's her?
Mm-hmm.
Did she have the nerve to say why men don't? Are you serious? That's not her. Is that her?
Yes.
Are y'all serious?
You hit that picture.
I think she sounds good, though, when she sings.
Right, I can't say nothing about her singing because I ain't no K. Michelle fan. I don't be listening to these bitches. But what I'm saying is,
or like I smashed that. I mean that.
What smash? Man, look, I'll rub them hard ass titties and kick that bitch out the room that I don't even want. You can't spend the night here, even though I ain't gonna spend the night here, bitch. I don't trust my credit card on this room, bitch. Get your bum ass out of here.
Yeah, she can only stay in the room I'm paying cash for.
Right.
Yeah, bitch, you still in the
See,
shit.
I had a woman talking crazy about the hotel I put her in before.
For real, yeah.
I done seen so much drama in my life when it comes to these. I don't know what to say about the world and these women thinking they doing something by acting like men are no good. And here you go, right here. Like if somebody do something, look, I'm gonna tell you something. If somebody did something 10 years ago, I'll give you a pass.
What you
That's
mean?
when you was younger.
Like,
if somebody did something when they was 30, when they 40,
yeah,
and they say I ain't living like that, I'll give you a pass. I call it the 10-year rule.
But what you talking about? Like, what? Because once you, to me, you can't. Like Kanye said, he used to let suck his cousin's dick till he was 14. It ain't no niggas that used to suck dick. Once you do it, you always gonna do it.
You think so?
It's niggas out there that used to suck dick, that suck dick on a regular, and say, you know what? Nah.
I think most of them like that, but there are some people who get taken advantage of. But
Right.
the problem is, all of them are claiming I got taken advantage of.
Right.
All the men out here messing with men are saying, oh, I got molested when I was young. That's the new I get a pass for it.
Yeah. But see,
all right, we're gonna leave it right there, ladies and gentlemen, because it ain't going to a Kanye thing. But I think they said what they had to say. Basically, yeah, K. Michelle is not worth the paper she printed on. Anyway, we're gonna move on. We're gonna get into the nitty gritty of why we came here tonight, and that is the Diddy Trial. Diddy Trial recap. So let's get into it, ladies and gentlemen. Have it all queued up. Thanks to Law and Crime, we are back into Diddy Crime recap, and again, a lot of things happened here during these last couple of days. Again, this is recapping what happened, I believe, on Tuesday, which is the appearance by Kanye West, I believe. No, 5 days. So this is all right. Hold on just a second. Let me just get my stuff together here. Bear with me one moment. I think it's this one here.
A juror was suddenly removed,
Yes.
explosive texts were revealed, and prosecutors attempted to paint an even darker picture of Sean Diddy Combs' inner circle. From escort logistics to alleged drug use, jurors were walked through a flood of messages that prosecutors say exposed the operation behind the accusations. We're going to break it all down with Law and Crime's in-court reporter Elizabeth Milner right now. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Hey everybody, this is another Law and Crime legal alert. Down in today's proceedings, you know I'm going to bring in Law and Crime's in-court reporter Elizabeth Milner, who's been there for every step of the action. Elizabeth, so good to see you. So before we get into the testimony, we got to talk about this drama with a juror number 6, dismissed. What happened?
Yeah, so it didn't necessarily come as a surprise that this particular juror, that being juror number 6, was dismissed. I think the judge was kind of signaling that this
bit of business, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just trying to shortcut things. I think this bit of business was actually gone over, and jury number 6 being dismissed simply because of his movement, and it was seen as a win for the prosecution because it was seen that this juror was a lover of hip hop. I believe he was a prison warden, I believe, or worked in the correction system, and lover of hip hop, and knew of Diddy, and was potentially a fan of Diddy. So therefore, getting him off of the jury was a win scene for the prosecution. However, and he was replaced by, I believe, an accountant from Westchester, and so things roll on, things continue, and I think this Westchester accountant will be much more will take much more of an ear to the prosecution case than it would be the defense case. But we're gonna move on here. I believe we went over this the last time we were out here, so we're gonna move on to
sexual encounters, violence, and alleged six-figure hush payment. Those are just some of the highlights from today's testimony in Sean Diddy Combs' federal trial. Jurors were shown damning receipts, hotel records, videos, all in an effort to show a disturbing picture of alleged abuse and cover-ups. But the defense isn't backing down, arguing Cassie Ventura, the star witness in this case, wasn't a victim, she was a willing participant. We're going to be breaking all this down, what happened today in court, with Law and Crime's in-court reporter, Elizabeth Milner. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Well, the federal trial of Sean Diddy Combs took yet another turn today. More evidence presented for the jury to consider. We're talking explicit videos, text messages, apparently arranging sexual encounters, details of a, $100,000 payment allegedly made to cover up a violent altercation. The defense fought back aggressively, highlighting missing messages, arguing his ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura Fine, alleged victim number 1 in this case, that she willingly participated in these encounters, that this is not sex trafficking. And as the prosecution prepares to rest its case, the question remains, will this mountain of evidence be enough to actually convict the music mogul of racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, and transportation to engage in prostitution? Well, to help break all this down, I want to bring on Law and Crime's in-court reporter, Elizabeth Milner, who's been in that courtroom every day for every piece of testimony, including what happened today. Elizabeth, always great to see you. So, before we even talk about the testimony, a lot of preliminary issues about a juror or jurors, and also, is there something going on about a leak? Talk to us about these kind of issues before we even get into the testimony.
Yeah, well, court started a little bit earlier this morning. Normally it starts for the parties as well as us around 8:30 before the jury comes in around 8:45 and they begin testimony kind of around the 9 o'clock time frame. But bright and early this morning, the judge gets on the bench and his demeanor, Jesse, is a little bit different than normal. He seems really kind of annoyed or kind of ticked off about something. And so what we did learn is that he was upset about this particular article that came out. Now, he was very tight-lipped as far as what media organization kind of released this article. We all kind of have our assumptions about what the article entailed, and it was a recent article that came out just about a jury issue. And the reason this is such a big deal, and just for everybody who's kind of for everybody who wants to know more about it, why it's such a big deal, it's because on Friday all of us were taken outside of the courtroom so that way they could have a sealed courtroom, so that way they could talk about a particular issue. Now, at the time, we didn't know what this issue was, but we knew that it was kind of big enough for them to seal the courtroom down. Diddy was still inside the courtroom. Both parties were inside that courtroom, but all of the public, the court sketch artists, us and the press, we all had to leave for about a 20-minute time period, and then we were all let back inside. But we didn't know what this conversation was. But we believe it might pertain to this article that was released just this week about a juror getting a text text message from a juror getting a text message from somebody asking them if they were juror number 6. And as we all know, and as we've all been following this case, we know that juror number 6 was the one who was ultimately dismissed from the case just this week. But the question is, who was the source that revealed to the media organization what had happened during this, what was supposed to be a closed proceeding? So the judge gets on the bench this morning and he says pretty much that somebody had spilled the beans. So he kind of confronts Maureen Comey, who is kind of lead counsel for the prosecution, and Mark Agnifilo, who is the lead counsel for the defense, kind of wondering who was the source of the leak. Now, both sides denied that they had any leaks coming from either respective camp about who gave this information to the media organization, who then released this in an article. And so the defense says they recently became aware of this leak, of this article that came out, and then obviously the prosecution was adamant that the leak didn't come from their camp. So the judge was kind of like, when he was on the bench, well, somebody's lying to me. It had to come from somebody because this courtroom was shut down. There was nobody in there except officials and doing official business. And so he said that somebody did violate the court sealing order, and then he said that he told Maureen Comey and Mark Agnifilo, again, prosecution and defense, that they're kind of on notice and that they should try to kind of find the source of the leak if it comes from their camp, and that the most extreme kind of action that he could possibly take, because he was taking this matter very seriously, Jesse, where he said the most extreme action that he could take was just a criminal contempt charges. But the thing is, nobody knows who this source is. But honestly, Jesse, I think what the biggest thing is, and kind of the biggest mystery that we all walked away from being in court today, was who was kind of the source of this leak, and possibly what kind of will end up happening in terms of any action that is taken by the judge. So that kind of remains a mystery, but what we do know is it has something to possibly do with the jurors, something, and I say that very lightly.
So yes, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. It seems that the identity of juror number 6 was leaked. I think it got out to the media as to who juror number 6 is. It remains to be seen what ramifications will become of juror 6. If he will be paid to show and tell about the proceedings that go on in the trial. But they usually like to keep these things under wraps. They don't like letting out who these jurors are until after the case is completely over. Then it's no holds barred then. But it does taint the trial to a certain extent, and it can be an annoyance to the judge presiding over said trial. So it can be considered problematic, but since juror 6 is not there anymore, I very much doubt that he will go public with anything until this thing is over, but maybe not, and that's maybe the reason for the annoyance from the judge, and the reason why he really wanted to get to the bottom of this too sweet as to the identity as to who leaked the identity of juror 6. So it is it remains to be seen what will be done of this, but this is just showing that there is shoddy, that government secrets that secrets were given up for the public, and it shows that the court's not doing his job, or the lawyers aren't doing their job, or someone working within the courts aren't doing their job, and it would annoy a judge, absolutely, and it should annoy counsel, to be fair. That this gets out, and they don't want to be hit with a contempt charge as stated by the judge. So it's a shame that this happened, but it's happened. But I don't see any real ramifications from this. But there is a potential of him being paid, a good amount of money in order to hear his story pre-decision from the trial. Let's continue.
Hey everybody, this is a law and crime legal alert. Did you know that children are being diagnosed with serious
Following this case since the beginning, as all the alternates have. They've been following this case. They've been seeing the exact same exhibits. They've been listening to the testimony just as well as the other jurors have been. And so from what I could tell, especially as they were listening or watching the freak-off videos today, that I could tell that it might have made them just a little uncomfortable, right? Because who wants to watch these types of videos in open court? And then as they're digesting it, surprisingly, they all kept a pretty straight face. But I will say from that alternate juror who now kind of is in the main jury group, I should say, that I will say that it seemed like he was taking the headphones off pretty quickly. I think, the freak off videos and the sexually explicit videos might have been a little bit too much, especially for the morning time for these jurors to watch.
Understandable. I get it. All right, let's move on to witness testimony. So the only witness of the day today, right? Only witness was Special Agent, and correct me if I'm mispronouncing her name, Dialisa Penland from the U.S. Attorney's Office of the Southern District of New York. Continued her testimony from yesterday, one of these summary witnesses. When you have a voluminous amount of material, digital material, so video, text, sometimes you need a witness to kind of condense it, summarize it, give an overview of what it is, pick out the big parts into these charts, right? These summary charts. And one of the things that she testified to was the jury saw records for an escort named Jules, right? So what did we learn about Jules? What did those records show?
Well, for all the viewers who have been following the case, we know that Jules was the escort that was used, or that was also there during the Intercontinental Hotel incident in March of 2016. But as we've all been following this case, we know that Jules was somebody that Cassie and Diddy used kind of frequently in terms of their freak offs. And so what we did see was just some more records and summary charts, which isn't the most exciting stuff, but I think it's pretty interesting in terms of, the government really just kind of putting all the puzzle pieces really together in an organized chart, so that way the jurors can kind of be like, oh, we see this connects with this, and this. And so we saw an exhibit of that flight summary chart, specifically from dates including August 26th of 2009. So going back in time a little bit here to kind of the beginning stages of Cassie and Diddy's relationship, through August 28th of 2009. So they traveled, or the reservation was for a London hotel here in New York City. The names under it were Cassie, Sean Combs, and then Jules Theodore, aka Jules, aka the escort that Cassie and Diddy had used pretty often. And so what we did see was some flight records for Jules Theodore from LAX to JFK on August 26th of 2009, and then from JFK back to LAX on August 28th of 2009. And so what I think the government did pretty well is kind of connect the dots to even just things like the charges made on the American Express statement that the account holder was for Sean Combs. And so these dates range from the American Express statement that we saw as an exhibit was from August 26th of 2009 to August 29th of 2009. So again, those same time frames where we saw charges to the London hotel. The arrival was for August of 26th of that year, and the departure date was August 29th of that year. We saw a charge for Virgin America, the airline, for $419.61. We saw a charge to the travel agency, and that being a $50 charge. We saw a charge for even a limo service around this time frame for $227.70. And then we saw another charge to American Airlines, presumably for the flight home, I think it was, for $419.60. And of course, that account holder being registered to Sean Combs. And so we saw the ending balance for that month, that being again August of 2009 for Sean Combs's American Express statement, and it was a lot of money. It was $218,353. So it was just a lot of money, kind of nearing in that $250,000 range as far as just a credit card statement just for the month of August of 2009. And then we saw some corresponding text messages too from that same time frame, where Cassie writes to Jules, "Hey, how are you? Give me a call when you get this." Jules responds, "Did you two leave?" Cassie says, "Here's your booking locator." And then she sent kind of all the information as far as the flight goes. And then Jules said, "Thank you." Cassie says, "Have a safe flight." And then Jules responds, "Thank you and happy B-Day." And so there were just some more kind of similar summaries that the jury was able to see that really kind of connects the dots between the flight summaries to the American Express statement charges, and then even just the corresponding account numbers that kind of went into paying off that particular American Express statement, as well as records from the hotel, and then notes attached from the hotel reservation. So really kind of taking it piece by piece by piece. And I understand, charts aren't the most exciting thing, but it really makes a lot of sense when you kind of put it into the full context.
Basically, ladies and gentlemen, these charts were here to remind the jurors of some of the predicate offenses that P. Diddy was going through, and really sharpen their memory with regards to, um, you know, the fact that this man was the head of a criminal organization was the reason why he was charged with a RICO. But what also this shows is as well is the fact that Cassie was a part of these was a part of these planning stages. Cassie was a part of really staging these freak offs. So, as stated earlier in the preview, it wasn't just Diddy alone, the mastermind of these freak offs, and he wasn't saying the lube goes there, the baby oil goes there, the red lighting goes here, and he was in sole director, and everybody was an actor to whom Diddy was at the behest of Diddy. Cassie very much chose the escorts. Cassie very much made sure that the escorts got on the flight and got here on time. She was part of the planning process. So it's something that the defense, I'm sure, will jump on the fact that Cassie was a part of this whole planning stage, and so to hit Diddy with a RICO charge is a bit unfair. It doesn't it doesn't bear up to the evidence simply because, as you saw, Cassie was all involved in the precursor planning stages for these freak offs. So that's something the defense, I'm sure, will harp on. But the plaintiff is simply doing this because they want to keep the jury's mind focused on what's at hand, and that is, the steady, movement of this trial towards Diddy being convicted of under the RICO Act. And it's just basically because memories can be short, and they sometimes they'll not remember things with all these jurists out. All these witnesses out there, because we're up to 20 witnesses now, and going into 21. So again, it can get a bit complicated. So to be fair and frank, it's needed that the jury's mindset is jogged here, so that they realize what's at stake, and they refresh their memories of what has already transpired. Let's continue.
I think they're so important. If you're trying to prove transportation to engage in prostitution, right? Transporting sex workers and alleged victims for the purposes of sex work, this is exactly the kind of evidence that you need. Transporting people, right? Transporting sex workers, alleged victims, it's also part of sex trafficking. There is a commercial element to that, right? There is a travel component to that. So the payment receipts, the credit cards, the travel records, these are all so important. They're granular, they're specific, they're data-driven, but they are so important in proving these charges. What about this hotel stay for someone named Dave? How was that booked?
So it looked very similar, honestly, to Jules's kind of records, too, where we saw the flight summary exhibit, those for the dates of September 15th of 2014 through September 17th of 2014. And so we saw that the reservation was at the Four Seasons Hotel in Los Angeles. So instead of New York City, it was in Los Angeles. And the reservation name was for a person named Eli Maroon. And what we know about Eli Maroon is that he's one of Diddy's assistants. And so the names kind of corresponding with this particular time frame were Sean Combs and Clayton Howard, aka Dave. Now, what kind of stood out to me, honestly, Jesse, was that Cassie's name wasn't in this kind of list of names. But then I kind of thought about it around this time frame that they wouldn't need to fly her out, mainly because she already lives in Los Angeles around this time frame, or also possibly that it wasn't her in this hotel room. So you could really kind of see it both ways, but really just the names that we saw attached to it were Sean Combs and Clayton Howard, aka Dave. And so the flight records were for Clayton Howard from JFK to LAX on September 15th of 2014, and then from LAX back to JFK on September 17th of 2014. So just departing just a couple days later. Then we see a charge, or the American Express statement charges for the Four Seasons Hotel around September 15th of 2014. And then we also see a charge for Journey Corp Travel Agency for $50. So that is the travel agency that's been used to kind of help book a number of flights or hotels too. And so then we see an exhibit of 5 different bank accounts that helped pay off this American Express card statement. And the accounts were assigned to Combs Enterprise, Bad Boy Entertainment, Bad Boy Productions, Finance Department, And then we see the records from the Four Seasons Hotel, where the reservation, again, being under Eli Maroon. The arrival date was for September 15th of 2014, the departure date being September 17th of 2014, and the room rate being about $495. We see a payment for American Express with the account number that's assigned to the cards that Diddy had, and then we see the contact name under this particular reservation, or this hotel record, I should say, from Christina Coram. And so just another thing that's kind of attaching her. So it's kind of pretty sad that we're not seeing her being called as a government witness per se, or possibly even a witness altogether. We just have to wait and see. But under the reservation notes for the Four Seasons Hotel, it says Mr. Eli Maroon asked for a room to be added to his reservation. And then we see a travel invoice for Bad Boy Entertainment, and the passenger being Clayton Howard, aka Dave. So again, these are just some of kind of the way that the government was presenting these types of summary charts, where it's really just the flight summary chart, kind of putting it all together, and then really taking it again piece by piece, really connecting the flights, because the defense can really be like, okay, well, how do we know that the people there were actually there at this specific time frame? And so they, they did what they could under cross-examination. I know we'll talk about that later, but in terms of just what the government was doing, I feel like they kind of did a pretty good job in really just putting it all together and really kind of laying it out in a very kind of layman's type of way, so that way we could all kind of understand, and it clicks right there.
So yes, as you can see, what the government is trying to do, they are trying to establish sex trafficking, as stated by Jesse Weber, and they're basically showing booking dates, showing flights, all these charted booking dates, flights, travel agents, what money exchanged for the flights, what hotel they went to, what expenses were spent on these hotel rooms, all these things they wanted, charted, graphed, and exhibited for the jury, so that they can see indeed that this was a summary of actions leading towards sex trafficking over state lines. And this is where the RICO charge comes in, and because sex trafficking is one of the predicate offenses. And so that's what this summary witness Dadisa Penland wanted to show to the jury is the fact that there's a pattern of events here going on, and happen again and again and again, where sex trafficking violations were found to happen. However, again, we have to take we have to concede the point of Cassie's part in these sex trafficking violations, because without Cassie's say so, these gentlemen would not be participating in these freak offs with Diddy, because again, she was the ultimate tris in these freak offs themselves. Let's continue.
Right, because when Cassie testified or Jane testified, they would talk about alleged sex workers being transported to X, Y, and Z. This obviously corroborates their.
And do remember, ladies and gentlemen, we are doing it live here on Talk Live. So like, subscribe, comment on the road to 1,000 subscribers, and do comment on the night. If my very special, my girlfriend could comment, just to make sure that these comments are going through, it would be greatly appreciated. Let's continue.
Testimony, but now you can actually, exactly like you said, you can pinpoint it. You can link Sean Combs, you can link the money, you can link the travel, and that is key here. That is key. So it was introduced by the alleged victims, and now they're really trying to, finalize it and really make it crystal clear for the jury. One of the things that came up a lot during the course of this case, even from the very beginning, was about the damage to hotel rooms, right? These freak-off events, how elaborate they are, how intense they were. There were records about hotel damage fees, right? Those were shown to the jury as well. What did we learn about that?
Yeah, so what we did learn is that there were hotel invoices, hotel records, just more documents that were shown today. So for example, we saw one hotel invoice for Phil Pines. What we know about Phil Pines is that although he wasn't someone that was called to testify that we know of, he is somebody that we do know used to be Sean Combs' assistant. And so we saw that hotel invoice under Phil Pines' name, but a charge for $500 because of damage to drapes, something that's been testified to even previously. But we also saw another exhibit it, that being a hotel invoice for L'Hermitage Hotel, and then it was a $1,700 charge for linen damage. But I think they ended up taking away that $700, so it ended up just being a $1,000 charge. But the hotel was booked under a Mr. Ryan Lopez. What do we know about Mr. Ryan Lopez is that he's also somebody that used to be Diddy's assistant. And so then we kind of see around this time frame, just again, those American Express statements that really kind of showed, or the government was able to show that this American Express statement also paid off some of these damages, including the damage for drapes or the damages for the linens. And so even though they didn't happen around the same time frame, the government was able to kind of really show with this particular witness that these charges were paid off using the American Express.
Mm-hmm. And there's also a conversation about the 2016 event, right?
Not the smartest of things for Diddy to pay for these things on a credit card, because now you leave a paper trail, which is easily picked up by the prosecution. Usually back in the day, when a criminal organization acted, they usually acted in cash because it was untraceable. Nowadays, since Diddy is remember, Diddy is acting under a legitimate organization here. He has Combs Enterprises, he has Bad Boy, he has Revolt, he has many other companies under his name. So therefore, these are all legitimate companies involved in the entertainment industry. So and also Sean John in terms of clothing, in terms of entertainment. So these are all legitimate companies in which Sean John can run these costs through. However, the fact that he was engaging in sex trafficking makes it easier to detect, and because all these expenses need to be reported since you're a part of a company, right? So a public company. So therefore, you're going to need to report these all these names, dates, places, and for tax returns and whatnot. However, it makes it easier for the government to form a case against you in case you do. In case you engage in predicate acts leading to a RICO offense. That's the problem. But again, if you were a true criminal organization, all this would be paid in cash. Do you remember? Let's continue.
Right, the infamous 2016 event, yes. Arguably the most important evidence in this case, because it helps to prove a pattern of abuse towards women. It helps to prove sex trafficking. This is where Cassie was seen on tape being beaten by Sean Combs. She claims she was leaving a freak off when this happened. You see her dragging her back towards that room. We've already heard testimony about Sean Combs allegedly bribing a hotel security officer so that video would never see the light of day. But now we get the records, and now we get the text messages, right? The text messages all surrounding that event and the flurry of activity that surrounded that event. What do we learn?
Yeah, so it was presented under kind of a different exhibit as opposed to the flight summary charts, right? It was presented kind of in a way as just a timeline where we were able to see just calls that were made, text messages that were sent. If a voicemail happened, we were able to see that. We were able to see if there were images sent with text messages. So they really kind of just laid it all out there. And while there were some messages that we've already seen, it was really kind of nice to have it all just lumped together in terms of just how the events all occurred, especially on that specific day. So it really kind of, they brought it back to March 4th of 2016, where you see Diddy calling Cassie at 6:04 p.m. That was when he initiated communication that day, and that Cassie had called Diddy at 6:05 p.m. Then we see a message from Guerin to Cassie, Guerin being somebody that Cassie used for Cowboys for Angels to kind of coordinate and get the escorts to these hotels or wherever their freak-offs would occur, where Guerin writes to her, "Fun tonight?" ? And that's at 6:21. Cassie responds, "Yes, LA." Then Guerin responds, "Mr. Schuyler?" Cassie responds, "Yes, but anyone new?" Then Diddy calls Cassie at 6:39 p.m. That call wasn't answered. Then Cassie writes to Guerin, "Okay, can you put him on notice? It might be 7:30. Just Schuyler is good." Then Diddy calls Cassie about 3 different times at 7:48 p.m., 7:49 p.m., 7:51 p.m. Then Schuyler texts Cassie where he said, "Hey, you, smiley face, I can be there around 10:30 or 11 p.m. Diddy calls Cassie 3 more times. There was no answer. Skylar writes to Cassie, what time and where would you like to meet? Then Cassie responds to Skylar, okay, can you do 3 a.m.? So then we get to the next day, that being March 5th, where Skylar writes to Cassie, I know you're doing a good job. I wanted to say keep it up. I'm going to lay my head down. Then Diddy calls Cassie. It wasn't answered. And that's between 11:28 a.m. to 11:35 a.m. on March 5th. And then we see photos of Cassie's bruises. And again, these were the ones that she had testified to that she took in the back of the Uber. She's wearing sunglasses. But she says by that point, what had happened at the Intercontinental Hotel as far as the assault goes had already occurred because she is covering up one of the black eyes. So we're able to see that image once again on this timeline. Then what we see again from March 5th of 2016 is Diddy calling Cassie a few times. Diddy then texts her saying, call now. Cassie texts Diddy, I went and checked everything and spoke to security. Jules left, so you're good. Diddy responds to Cassie, call me now. And then some time goes by. Then he writes back, cops are here. Diddy calls Cassie 3 more times. Then Cassie calls D-Rock. Diddy texts Cassie, so you're going to abandon me? And then some time goes by. Then he says, call me, please. Cassie texts Diddy, I have a premiere on Monday for the biggest thing I've ever done. I have a black eye and fat lip. You're sick for thinking what you've done is okay. Please stay far away from me. And obviously she said more things, but I was trying to write down everything as fast as I could. But again, it's one of the messages that we've already seen in this case before, but now it's kind of laid out in just a timeline and sequence of events. And so then afterwards, Diddy calls Cassie a bunch of times. Then D-Rock calls Cassie. Then Christina Coram calls Cassie. Kind of, again, going to what Cassie had testified, where she just got a bunch of calls from all these different people trying to get a hold of her. Then we see that Diddy had texted Cassie, if you don't pick up, you'll never hear my voice again. And then Diddy writes, I'm getting arrested. Diddy calls Cassie 4 more times between 1:05 p.m. that day and 11:26 p.m. Then we see Christina Coram text Eli Maroon, what room is he in? And that happens at 1:09 p.m. Then D-Rock texts Christina Coram, is Puff at the house? Cassie then calls D-Rock a few times. The calls connect, but only for just a short time period. Then D-Rock messages Christina Coram, I'm in the car headed to you. Then Cassie texts Christina Coram, can you please tell him the neighbors are about to call the police? And remember, if you kind of go back to her testimony where she had said she finally got home, then there was kind of just a commotion that happened over at her place. And then they believed that the neighbors had called the police because of just what they were hearing as kind of a noise disturbance type of thing. And so then D-Rock writes to Christina Coram, tell him that he needs to get out of there. And Christina Coram writes to Cassie, sorry, urgent, please call me back. I got him, we're leaving. Then Cassie writes to Christina Coram, thank you, please take away any keys that he has. So at 3:27 p.m. that day, Christina Coram writes to Cassie, talk to him. He promised he won't go back over if you just talk to him for 5 minutes. And then a couple, time goes by a little bit here. And then Christina Coram also writes to Cassie, sorry, don't want to be in the middle. Just want to make sure he doesn't go over there. And so, while, on its face, it doesn't seem like it's a lot, but because we've seen these messages before. But again, it's really just kind of laying out just everything that had happened. And I think also what was interesting, Jesse, is that they really kind of started laying out the sequence of events in terms of just Eddie Garcia's role and what had happened after the Intercontinental Hotel incident too. And as we all know from his testimony, that he was the one who gave the video of he gave the surveillance video to Diddy for a price, and a pretty hefty price too, that being about 6 figures.
Let's talk about that, because yes.
So again, it's just reliving the day of infamy, and that was the date at the Intercontinental Hotel where the obvious filmed abuse of Diddy to Cassie Ventura, which eventually got her paid $35 million. To be fair, after years of alleged abuse, both physical and mental. And it happened in 24 hours. I mean, Diddy had his hands held up, and pretty much anyone would. And to be fair and frank, okay, we'll leave it there. It wasn't the best of circumstances for Diddy at all. And again, this is more jogging the witnesses, the jurors' memory of what went on, of why they were here, and that is to stop a man who wanted to continue, all these predicate offenses of freak offs, all these predicate offenses that he was involved with, and stop a criminal organization and the smoking gun was indeed this intercontinental hotel fight between Cassie and Diddy. And it's just to focus the jurors' energies on why they're here and what was done. And yeah, again, that is a huge piece of evidence, a huge win for the prosecution in this instance. And it remains to be seen how the defense will counteract this, but it's going to be a very, very difficult time for them to do that. So we'll see what happens going forward, but not the best of occasions for the defense at all, let alone the defendant himself, Sean Puff Daddy Combs. Let's go.
Coram had texted Combs' assistant, I'm going to just ask to cover damages. Combs wants to speak to the Spanish security guard. And then, I think the message from Christina Coram, say they had a fun, drunk night to get more information. It goes to this idea of racketeering. It goes to this idea that Sean Combs allegedly used his assistants, his inner circle, his businesses to not only pay for all of these kind of hotel nights or Wild King nights or freak-offs, whatever you want to call them, but that he was using them, this is the allegation, to cover up crimes, to commit crimes and cover up crimes. If the jury accepts that these nights, these freak-offs were evidence of sex trafficking, that they're crimes, and you have the assistants who are facilitating them and then covering up the aftermath of them, that's how you get to racketeering. And that includes the what? $100,000 alleged payment for security footage? What did we learn today about that? Because we already heard about it from Eddie Garcia.
Well, in addition to the messages that you just read, too, we saw a message from Eli Maroon to Christina Coram also saying, after Christina Coram told Eli to just say that they had a fun, drunk night, that Eli responded, LOL, no shot, they aren't playing nice. And so then we see some more messages from Christina Coram to Eli Maroon where she is saying, did you get security number? PD is asking. PD also being Sean Combs, a.k.a. P. Diddy, a.k.a. Diddy. And then Eli responds to Christina Coram, wouldn't give it to me. Then Christina goes, okay, well, what's Eddie's last name? Then we see the next day of the timeline, that being March 6th of 2016, where we see text photos, where we see text messages and then photos kind of accompanying these messages of Carrie Morgan and D-Rock, I think at Cassie's condo, where she was after this incident happened, where Diddy messages D-Rock, how is she? And D-Rock responds, she's good. She's eating breakfast. Her face don't look bad. She's good. Call her. She's smiling and laughing with yum. And then we start to get into the messages with Eddie Garcia, and those being the messages the day after on March 7th of 2016. So we see a text from Cassie to Diddy where she says, I wish I could crawl into bed until I look better. Then we see the number of calls between Eddie Garcia and Diddy between 11:03 a.m. on March 7th to 1:22 p.m. on that same day. Then we see some more calls that were made from 1:25 p.m. to 2:02 p.m. So just a lot of calls that we were seeing. And then the government kind of showed in their timeline Eddie Garcia's driver's license and then the text messages that accompanied that, as well as kind of messages from Cassie to Carrie Morgan, her best friend at the time, where she said, I should have sued, LOL. And then Carrie Morgan responds, totally. Then at 6:31 p.m., there's photos of Cassie and Diddy at her movie premiere. And then we see a bunch of calls that are placed between Eddie Garcia and Diddy on March 8th of 2016, on March 9th of 2016, and going all the way into March 25th of 2016. So really got to see, we've heard Eddie Garcia's testimony, right? We've also heard a little bit from Cassie just as far as, what she thought might have happened with the surveillance video, that type of thing, but really kind of seeing it all just mapped out in terms of just like the way the night was supposed to start to the way everything ultimately ended. I think the government did a pretty good job in just laying it all the way out there, but when cross-examination happens, we know that there is a lot of kind of holes poked into the timeline that was made by the government pretty much.
Yeah, but this evidence definitely corroborates Eddie Garcia's account. And remember, bribery, one of the underlying crimes, predicate acts of racketeering. Prosecution has to prove at least two. There's forced labor, there's arson, there's drug offenses, there's bribery. This always felt to me like one of the more digestible, concrete examples, and perhaps the jury will find that and find that Sean Combs engaged in bribery and was working with others to engage in bribery. And these records definitely help that case. So let's talk a.
So listen, point blank period. This summary witnesses, Ms. Penline is there to jog the jury's memory of what transpired between, especially from the early case. But Cassie was the third witness. We're now at 20 witnesses. We've already been through 5 weeks of trial, so memories may fade in these instances. So again, they are just bringing about the fact that okay, you've already established they're seeing all these sort of flight records and money exchange, so to show sex trafficking. Now they're showing a videotape, the videotape evidence, and with that videotape evidence, what transpired between Diddy's staff, Diddy and Eddie Garcia, part of the staff at the Intercontinental, and the bribery that went on in order to obtain the tape of Cassie's, uh, well, abuse at the hands of Diddy. And it's showing bribery, which is another predicate offense leading to a RICO offense. So it's really because again, they're using the date in question at the Intercontinental Hotel. They're using dates in question in terms of flight records with regards to sex work and sex workers across borders. And this summary witness is here to point out to the jury what we have already seen here on Talk Live. This chart here. And it's just to point out to these kids what happened in kidnapping, what happened in arson, what happened in bribery of witnesses. There he is, Israel Flores. But we also have to add Eddie Perez to that. Witness tampering, there's that as well. Sex trafficking, they went back to that. Prostitution, they went back to that. Drug distribution, they didn't exactly go back to that. I'm sure they will, but that's what this summary witness is all about, Miss Penland. Showing these charges, showing a chart like this, and letting the jury know that, hey, this guy is, we're giving you evidence that this guy's guilty of a RICO charge. He was the head of a criminal organization. They may have been legitimate companies, but still it was a criminal organization because they engaged in these offenses that are predicate offenses under the RICO Act. You get it now? That's exactly what these guys are seeing here. So in a chart like this, but in this tape, it would be flight records, money exchanged, dates at hotels, that sort of thing. Different travel arrangements. And then after that, it would be the Diddy tape and Eddie Garcia and his participation in the bribery involved in, and that's bribery of witnesses. They right there, 13C, and that would be another piece of evidence that would go against Diddy and see him as the hub or the head or the king, as it were, in this criminal organization per se. Let's continue. Let's get back to it with, yes, Law and Crime with Mr. Jesse Weber.
A little bit about cross-examination. They were focusing, in my opinion, and I'm curious if you can elaborate, it seems like they were saying, hey, guess what? You presented a lot for this jury. There's a lot of messages missing from your charts, though. Isn't that strange? A lot of messages missing from your chart. Messages that were quite helpful to the defense's case, right?
Yes, and honestly, there were times, Jesse, during this cross-examination, I thought, okay, are they thinking that this special agent is Cassie Ventura? Because it felt like they were just really repeating the text messages, the video exhibits in terms of just what I think they wanted to do during the cross-examination of Cassie Ventura, but they were able to get it all in under Special Agent Alyssa Penland. And so right off the bat during this cross-examination conducted by Tenny Garagos, they being the defense, asked about the duties of a special agent versus the duties of a paralegal specialist. Because if everyone remembers, yesterday we had one of the summary witnesses for the government be a paralegal specialist, and I think they were trying to compare and contrast the duties of Special Agent Alyssa Penland versus the paralegal specialist who had testified yesterday. And so Alyssa Penland had testified that the duties between a special agent are that they serve subpoenas, they investigate, whereas a paralegal specialist kind of helps get everything in terms of preparation with documents kind of all in order. investigator. But her duties in this case wasn't really to investigate. It was really to just review the charts for accuracy. She had testified to that multiple times, and then just all the exhibits that were used in particular were just something that the government, the trial team specifically, wanted to use in this particular exhibit. And so I think the defense was kind of like, okay, well, why weren't some dates included? Why weren't some messages included? Those types of things. And so the defense brings up one row, which just had Sean Combs' name in it, not Cassie's name attached to this too, where it was from December 2015. It was a stay at the L'Ermitage Hotel, and that was where there was kind of damage to that particular room, and then the booking was under Diddy's assistant, that being Ryan Lopez. Then the defense brings up text messages between Christina Coram and Eli Maroon, where Christina Coram is like, okay, well, they are both out. That's what she said in the text message. And then the defense was kind of like, okay, well, who is they? Why didn't you investigate who they was? Because the only name that they saw in that particular row on that flight chart was just Sean Combs' name. However, around this time frame, Cassie was in South Africa shooting her movie, something that we've heard about kind of ad nauseum before. And so Penland said that, again, her job wasn't to conduct an investigation in this case. It was really just to review these charts for accuracy. But then Tenny Garagos is like, okay, well, did you ask to look at the records of where Miss Ventura was in December of 2015? Penland responds no. And then Penland also later says, it's clear someone else was there, but we just don't know who it was also in that room. As Christina Coram wrote to Eli Maroon, they are out. And so then Tenny Garagos goes, well, it's important to accurately present the data, right? Did you ask yourself who else is in the room? And then Penland responds, well, I was able to review what was provided by the trial team. Again, this was something that she wasn't just picking these dates and these text messages just to do so. It was something that was provided to her by the trial team and something that she had testified to under direct too. So then the defense kind of brings up just these time jumps that we saw in this particular summary chart from May of 2015. And then the next one that we see on that chart was October of 2015. And the defense asked if Penland had reviewed any of flights from August of that year. They also bring up that there was no hotel records associated with New Year's Eve of 2016, that New Year's Eve going into 2017, and then how the last page on the chart ends on June of 2017, that specifically being June 9th through June 11th of 2017, where Penland explains that that's the last entry. But we know that there's been just kind of more bookings and flights even after that time frame. But the defense brings up the text where Cassie is starting to say that she's ready to freak off, and that was back in 2009. And that's where I kind of say that it felt like they were trying to re-examine Cassie Ventura under cross, but they were using Delissa Penland to do it, because really what we saw were just a lot of text messages that, yes, we've seen before, but it seems like these were ones that they wanted to ask Cassie Ventura possibly while she was on the stand. So there were a lot of times I was kind of scratching my head while I was in the gallery, kind of like, well, where are they going with this? And kind of what is the point of showing all of this stuff? Because there was an email in particular that wasn't included in the chart. It was between Cassie and Diddy in August of 2009, August 7th of 2009. And then the defense brings up the London hotel records from 2009 and whether or not Delissa Penland reviewed those specific records attached to the hotel. Then they kind of go into April 4th of 2010, where the chart goes from 2010 to 2012. So then Delissa Penland testified that the charts indicates, based on evidence cited in the chart, the individuals were at these particular gatherings. And so the defense then brings up just kind of...
Just to let you know that just trying to get Instagram back online. YouTube, you're still here. You're still listening to Talk Live. And just going to try and bring back, I think they're trying to bring back Instagram for all my Instagram members who are watching this online. Please be patient. We're trying to get you back online here. All right. Just give me one second here. Let's see if we can get you back. Let's see if we can get you back online here. Okay. But let's continue with this on Talk Live on YouTube. All right. We're good. Okay. Yes, back on it.
A lot of text messages about Cassie wanting to do freak offs. Then they played the freak off videos, and during this particular time frame, or when they were playing the freak off videos, what they did was they shut off the exhibit monitor for the gallery and the overflow room, so we weren't able to see what was kind of going on. We were barely able to hear what was going on too, because all the jurors and then both parties are wearing headphones. Even the judge and the judge's clerk are wearing headphones, and the jury was able to see the freak off tapes once again. And then I was kind of like, okay, well, why are they showing these particular videos to somebody who just made, flight summary charts? I would think that would be something maybe the government was using in order to kind of prove that the escort was there, but then the defense used, and that's why I kind of bring up that it felt like they were just putting all this information about Cassie back in the jury's minds in terms of just her demeanor during these freak offs too.
What did they ask? What did they ask Penland about those videos?
Well, and that's the thing, right? Like, I thought they were going to be asking her questions in between, but they were really just like, okay, it goes from this time code to this time code, right? And then they played it and they played it. And it was just like a moment where we were thinking, okay, are there going to be questions kind of associated?
Yeah, we are. All those who are on IG, please come over to YouTube. We are continuing things on YouTube.
Associated with it, and that's where I kind of just stopped writing things down, because it really felt like we were in the room of silence for like 30 minutes.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think what they were trying to do was, in a sense, to say, hey, look at all these messages from Cassie to say that she was a willing participant, right? You have a message, I keep having sexy flashbacks of yesterday. One where she writes, I promise I will be the nastier freak bee to make up for it, right? These kinds of messages. And then, I don't know what's on these tapes. I have no idea what's on these tapes. But I imagine if the videos, and I hate to say it, if the videos are showing her excited or enthusiastic or saying or doing things, and you couple that with the messages, is it trying to give the jury a more streamlined view that she was a willing participant, that this was consensual, that this was not sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion?
It's what I said here about 10 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago. Yeah, a lot of what was said here, a lot of these sort of names, dates, messages, plans, trips, a lot of them Cassie was involved in. She actually sent texts that she was excited about getting into these freak offs. She was not a babe in the woods here. This was not her first rodeo. Cassie knew what was going on, and she was excited to do what P Diddy and Cassie were going to do with these sex workers. So, to put it bluntly, a lot of these timelines included Cassie in an excited mood, including Cassie being an organizer for these freak offs. So this is ammunition for the defense, as I stated.
I'd be totally off by thinking that?
No, not at all, because once we all returned kind of from the lunch break, we were able to see more text messages where Diddy is talking about Cassie coming to New York and how he wanted to see a Broadway play. And then this being October 12th of 2012, where Diddy says, FYI, F and David hit me. And then Diddy says, is coming to New York City this weekend, the RT move. And I think he meant the right move. And then Diddy texted Cassie that he has tickets to Book of Mormon. So I think they were just trying to introduce that, but then also kind of say that Cassie was looking at a lounge membership for, I think, like one of those adults only type of clubs. And then we saw more messages of Cassie, she took.
Again, that is a tidbit of information that the defense just shared there. And the fact that not only were these guys organizing freak offs, that both of these individuals were involved with sex clubs, were involved with the lifestyle, were involved with swinging. And that is totally a consensual sort of behavior. For lack of a better word, is a consensual lifestyle, to be fair. And again, when they are visiting these sex clubs and doing these sort of things, and they've made plans and doing all these things together, it looks like Cassie was involved with this with Diddy. She wasn't exactly a victim of Diddy. She actually was an active participant with Diddy. And that's something that the defense has to harp in on. The fact that Cassie wasn't a person who was innocent, and pure as a virgin snow, and had no idea what was going on, and she was a complete victim of Diddy and his sexual proclivities. The defense needs to harp into the fact that Cassie was an active participant, an assistant to Diddy in these freak-offs. To be fair, let's continue.
Took a selfie of herself with her hair. It was half shaven and it was long on the other side, where she had asked something along the lines of whether or not her hair is good for what they normally do, presuming that they mean freak-offs. And we saw one text message of Cassie asking Diddy how he felt after a freak-off, and Diddy responds that they have to be more careful next time. Then Cassie says, kind of like agreeing, and that she has to take a test, but it's unclear what type of test she had to take after this particular freak-off. And then we see just some more text messages that show Diddy asking Cassie for a freak off in October of 2013. Cassie responds, when? And then Diddy says, now. And then Cassie says, sure, she just has to run to the store to get some items. And we see more text messages from March 27th of 2014. Diddy says, I feel like having one of those nights, but I have to go to the studio. F. And then Cassie responds, ugh, me too. And then we see another message from January 19th of 2016 where Cassie says, you're making my heart melt, you're so loving, just really kind of those lovey-dovey messages that they wanted to kind of, I think, show the jury once again. And then we see another message from June 10th of 2017. That's a big day for me because obviously that's my birthday. But in this context, we see one particular message from Cassie asking Diddy kind of to take on this role-playing type of character in a sense, where she's like, okay, well, the game starts at 10 p.m. What we're going to do is kind of meet at this bar or this lounge. You're not going to know me. I'm not going to know you. And you're going to pick me up, that type of thing. And then she said, even in this particular message, in case of an emergency, the safe word is pineapple. And so to your point, Jesse, I think,
ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know what pineapple is, in the lifestyle, it's just, now this is, from my research, what pineapple means in the lifestyle the lifestyle community. Look up what pineapple means. It's quite intriguing. Let's continue.
what the defense was trying to do is really kind of show once again that she might have been a willing participant in these freak-offs, especially in even the later dates, because they even went back to the timeline from March 4th of 2016, where they see text messages between Cassie and Diddy. But the thing is that these particular messages weren't even reviewed by Delissa Penland, who was the witness putting together all this stuff on behalf of the government, where Cassie sends kind of this sexually explicit text message to Diddy. Then Cassie says to Diddy, baby, I want to F oh so bad. Diddy responds to Cassie, well, what would you want to do? And then again, the defense really pointing out that these texts weren't assigned to the chart. So Tenny Garagos is like, okay, well, did you decide not to include this in the chart? Delissa Penland responds, I did not. And then Tenny Garagos is like, okay, well, who decided what to include? And this was an answer that Delissa Penland had said throughout, that she wasn't the one to pick and choose which text messages or which exhibits were assigned. It was really just the trial team, and her role in this case was really just to make sure everything was accurate in terms of what the trial team gave her. And so really the defense kind of ended their cross-examination asking about whether or not the cops were called on March 5th of 2016, whether or not she looked over the incident reports from that time frame too. And then just kind of really ended on that message where Cassie told Carrie Morgan that she wanted to sue, and this being back in 2016 after the Intercontinental Hotel incident.
Yeah, and the defense could say, basically, at a minimum, what you're seeing, these summary charts, they're an incomplete picture of this whole relationship. There's no context. You're taking things out. You're making it look bad. Look at it in completion. Look at everything. But, look, there's a gray area. When you talk about, even aside the messages about her encouraging freak-offs or setting them up, but when you talk about the idea of she wanted, I know there was a message where she said she couldn't wait to have a baby with Sean Combs, right? Or where she expressed her love and he expressed her love. It's a gray area. It's a gray area. What happened on redirect? Prosecutors have an opportunity to question Agent Penland again. What happened there?
Before they get to that, yeah, exactly. The defense did its job, quite simply, and that's what Jesse Weber is trying to say there, is that they poked hole in these charts and graphs and these timelines the plaintiffs created, because these timelines are made to look Diddy back to made to look uh made to make Diddy look bad. There we go. It was made to make Diddy look bad, to be fair, in essence. I had to get that out. Finally got it out. But yes, and with that, the defense is trying to poke holes and say, okay, what happened at this time? What happened at this location? What happened here? What happened there? Why wasn't Cassie included in this? Why isn't Cassie included in that? And again, the plaintiff's witness, Ms. Penland, had no answers, and she had nothing to say in terms of the accuracy of all this evidence that was brought through Ms. Penland, and that can be considered a win for the defense, because it puts that scintilla of doubt in the minds of the jury, and and that's exactly what they want to do, because again, the defense, all they have to do is show that there was a reasonable doubt as to Diddy being in charge of a criminal organization in this instance, and if not, and if that is indeed the case, then therefore the defense wins and Diddy goes free. So again, it's sowing the seeds of doubt. It's creating that gray area. That's what the defense is doing, and they did a pretty good job. So much so that they had to have a redirect from the prosecution. Let's continue with that.
Yeah, so I really think the government was trying to kind of clean up every possible damage that was done under the cross-examination, given the amount of text and even just how lengthy the cross was too, where they really kind of brought it in. And I really was kind of thinking during the redirects, why didn't they introduce this under the direct? But there might be a reason that's just unknown to me. But what we were able to see is the flight itinerary summary chart once again from August 9th of 2013, where there was kind of a stay for the Garden Inn in Long Island here in New York, and the booking was for Cassie, and then the escort, but I completely, everything went by so fast I didn't write down this particular escort's name. But what the government ended up doing was they showed a photo kind of from a couple days earlier of Cassie with this really big kind of scar and very big cut on her eyebrow, and this happened or occurred around a couple days beforehand, that being August 5th of 2013. And then Cassie wrote in a message to Diddy, so you can remember, as well as kind of sending that picture of herself where she had the really kind of deep cut and that really kind of bruised eyebrow that we all saw. And then we see messages from March 5th of 2016, where there's text messages from Diddy to Cassie. And this is before what had happened at the Intercontinental Hotel incident, where Diddy writes to Cassie, I think if we start at 7 or 8 and end at 4 at the latest, take a Xanax or an Ambien to go to sleep and we'll be okay. Then we see messages from March 10th of 2016, so a few days after the incident occurred at the Intercontinental Hotel in Los Angeles in that year, where Diddy writes to Cassie, baby, I can't say it enough, I'm sorry, with 5 exclamation points. Then Cassie responds on that same day to Diddy, I'm not a rag doll, I'm someone's child. Again, a message that we've seen prior even to today in that timeline. Then we see another message on January 7th of 2017, where Cassie writes to Diddy, nothing good comes out of FOs anymore. You treat me like Ike Turner. And this was sent after a flight was booked between Cassie and another escort. And so I think what the government was really trying to do is really say, okay, well, there was a little possible alleged coercion here, because these are coming after these incidents of violence. And then you see kind of a corresponding hotel being booked, a flight happening, and then, allegedly a freak off occurring too.
Okay, so
again, it's just to show that Diddy was trying to, as they say, coerce Cassie into more freak offs by, apologizing and basically, winning back her favor, her confidence in Diddy. And once that happens, then the freakouts would continue. So again, they're trying to show Cassie as a victim here. So, they're doing their job. They're trying to re-educate the jury and get their mind right that indeed that Cassie was a victim and not a co-conspirator. Let's continue.
Quite an eventful day with Agent Penland, but now we're kind of previewing what's going to come next. And there is a name that we've heard a lot since the start of the Diddy saga, This is somebody who actually got arrested back in the day, right? Back last year when we were all wondering what was going to be happening with Sean Combs. And my understanding, this person was actually in court at the beginning of the day before Penland came on the stand. We're talking about Brendan Paul. Who is Brendan Paul? What happened at the beginning of the day? And what do you anticipate his testimony is going to be when he's called by the prosecution?
Well, honestly, Jesse, I was really hoping they'd be able to get Brendan Paul on the stand at some point today, but because of the duration of the cross-examination for Special Agent Alyssa Penland, it didn't happen. And so what we do know is that Brendan Paul was given an immunity deal in order to testify. He was subpoenaed to testify. So he comes into court earlier this morning before the jury is present, before Alyssa Penland even gets back on the stand. And what's interesting is during Brendan Paul kind of invoking his Fifth Amendment right and the judge signing off on his immunity order, Diddy wasn't in the courtroom during this. Why? Because he was actually reviewing some video exhibits in the back room with one of his defense attorneys, and so he ended up just waiving his right to be present when Brendan Paul took the stand this morning outside of the presence of the jury in order to get his immunity deal. So we didn't see that initial reaction of Brendan Paul seeing Diddy's face once again, nor did we get the reaction of Diddy seeing Brendan Paul's face once again. And so what was interesting is Brendan Paul, by the way, is very, very tall, but I think he used to play college basketball, and I was like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. But he comes
By the way,
in.
let me just tell you something. Mina Say-What-Lona, okay, from SiriusXM, she was on our live show today, our courtroom show. She went to school with him. She's like, I remember him. I went to Syracuse. I remember he was a basketball player.
No
so
way.
She was shocked that he became part of this case.
Oh
so when
my
you
God.
said how tall he is, I was like, oh my gosh,
Right.
makes sense.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
And by the
it
way,
was crazy too, because
Nick,
really,
Nick,
like,
our technical director, just said he remembers watching him on TV.
Oh my God.
So there you go.
Sorry, like, wow, that really is crazy. That real everything, like, it feels like all roads kind of lead to Diddy, right? In that case. And so, yeah, Brendan Paul, he gets up on the witness stand. It seems like, obviously federal court is probably not his forte. He seemed kind of maybe a little jittery, and I might just be kind of over assuming that, but he gets on the stand and he's not even looking at Mary Slavic or Christy Slavic when she's asking him questions just about his Fifth Amendment right and his immunity order, all of that stuff. He's looking kind of in the wrong direction, but then he kind of realized, oh, okay, I think she's the one asking me these questions. Let me go ahead and answer. But it was really kind of I thought it was a big moment, especially because we've talked about him so much before on Law and Crime, that seeing him in the flesh, I'm kind of like, what is he going to testify to? But what we do know is that his direct examination is only going to be about 90 minutes. So I'm curious how they'll be able to get maybe all the juicy stuff possibly in that 90-minute time frame. And then given however long the cross-examination occurs, I feel like he'll be on the stand at least for the majority of the morning tomorrow.
Yeah, this associate, I think it's all about drugs. And remember, drugs are important because prosecutors say that Sean Combs used drugs to keep victims compliant. Possession with intent to distribute, narcotics offenses, those are part of the predicate crimes for racketeering. So obviously he plays a big role in this. And by the way, we're coming to the end of the prosecution's case, right? I mean, do we know what the rest of the week is going to look like in terms of, is anybody going to be called after Brendan Paul? We kind of have an idea about who the defense is going to call. We're coming towards the end of this.
Yes, we are coming very near towards the end. So originally the government was like, okay, maybe we're able to rest our case on Wednesday. That didn't end up happening because of just how long the cross-examination happened for Alyssa Penland today. Then they still have to squeeze in Brendan Paul. He has to do direct and cross, possibly redirects again. So that might take a good chunk of Wednesday. And then obviously we're out of court on Thursday. And so what they're going to end up doing, and I don't know how you feel about this, Jesse, but they're ending the big witness being another summary witness. And so you would think, given this kind of Hollywood type trial, that they would kind of end with a bang, but it seems for the most part that they're ending with another summary witness and then possibly more summary charts, summary exhibits. So it's not the, maybe the juiciest stuff, but it is pretty interesting because whatever the summary witness will be will really kind of tie every loose end together for the government. Then the defense case happened. And what we did learn about the defense case today, Jesse, is that Mark Agnifilo said that they plan to have anywhere between 2 to 5 trial days, getting pretty close to the very end here. And then obviously, you know, the jury has to get the charge. There has to be jury instructions. And then somewhere in the near future, there's a light at the end of the tunnel that eventually the jury will get the case, and then eventually they'll start deliberating. So we could see that happening very, very soon. I just can't believe we're kind of near the end now. It seems like we just started, you know, so long ago, and now we're slowly approaching the end of the government's case and the defense's case, and we'll see what happens in the possible government rebuttal case, and then eventually the jury will get the charge.
And if Sean Combs decides to take the stand, then our whole timeline changes, because he would be on the stand for quite some time, both on direct and cross-examination. Look, you know, ending with a summary witness for a complicated RICO case like this, I don't blame them doing that. I think the closing arguments are going to be a lot of charts. I think they need a lot of exhibits. I think they need to explain this as clearly as possible. Better for the prosecution, not so for the defense. If the defense says this is really, none of this matches up, it's all complicated, they haven't proven it beyond a reasonable doubt. I think for the prosecution, they have to make it as clear as possible. And sometimes having these charts, these visual cues, these visual aids for the jury to understand the different elements and how they all match up and how the evidence matches up, it makes sense. You know, they talk about a summary witness. Usually it's kind of like an investigator, an agent, a paralegal. Could a summary witness be Christina Coram, who we've been talking about so much as this former chief of staff who's been mentioned by, I don't know, every single witness? We all thought that she was going to take the stand. We all thought she was going to be called, but she's not, right? As far as we know, any indication, Elizabeth, that Christina Coram is going to be this summary witness? I don't think so, right?
Nope. It doesn't seem like Christina Coram will be the summary witness, because even that might take the rest of the case up until next week. So unfortunately, we're not going to hear from KK when the government presents their case.
But they were able to present a lot of her messages, and maybe whatever value they have in that is why they didn't ultimately call her. Elizabeth Milner, thank you so much. Great reporting.
And thank you very much to Jesse Weber as well. And ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get back to it here, go on full camera. Thank you very much to Law and Crime for covering the day. So again, there was no court today. There was no trial date today, on Thursday. So again, this was Wednesday's proceedings, and we are left with Brendan Paul, which was he was the plug for Diddy in terms of his drug use, and he was the one who went out to obtain many of the drugs used during these freak offs, and so they started his direct examination on Wednesday, and it will continue tomorrow. So again, there we go. So we're gonna go back to the full cam here. So that will be that right now. Diddy in finals, nice. Thank you very much, Lana BK. Yes, indeed. Diddy in finals, yes, indeed. So we're gonna go back to the full camera here. So that's it for now. Things continue tomorrow in the Diddy trial with Brendan Paul, and then as both Milner and Weber say, let me just write those names down here. Milner and Weber say here, the law and crime experts here, Milner and Weber, law and crime. That will be that. There'll be another summary witness called, and both predict that Christina Coram, the executive assistant for P. Diddy, will not be called as a witness by the prosecution. So because this will take things into next week. So it is presumed that the prosecution would like to rest their case as of Friday, as of tomorrow, and then the defense will start proceedings as of next week, and thus the judge, I believe, Subramanian, really wants to get this trial down and done by July 1st. So this will give the defense, I think, 2 weeks. I believe it's 2 weeks of case time in order to get things done here. Yes, I believe, as of next week. Well, I'll give them a week and a day or so. So they must not have many witnesses to
as always,
check out here. Sorry, we're gonna stop that. So again, it's that gives them a week or so. So I think this will extend into July. I really don't think that the defense's case will be ended in July. unless they don't have many defense witnesses to call upon. But I think they will. I think they'll have over 10 themselves. So I think this is going to go into July. I think this is going to go into the first week of July, and I think we'll call it a day there. But thank you very much for joining me here in Talk Live. So as of today, we are looking for an update as to the trial. There was no trial today. There was no trial proceedings today. There were no witnesses called, and the prosecution have yet to finish their case. So pretty much Brendan Paul, summary witness, end of, as predicted by Weber and Milner here, it'll be the end of their case. So next week, when we do a review of this on Tuesday, we're going to be starting on Friday, basically. Friday, Monday, Tuesday will be our catch-up with regards to the Diddy file, the Diddy trial recap. So do stay tuned for that next week, and more barn burner issues. Let me tell you something. That K Michelle video that we did yesterday, yeah, it really ruffled a few feathers. It really got things going. I really appreciate your engagement with us here on Talk Live. So like, subscribe, comment on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Good or bad, please comment on what you see here today. Please watching, and I thank you very much for watching this. Again, I'm getting good numbers, really good numbers, and I'm really well pleased with the amount of people tuning into these Diddy trial updates and what I am providing, what we are providing with you, with the help of TMZ, with the help of Law and Crime in terms of the Diddy trial. So thank you very much for all that. Like and subscribe. Up to 1,000 subscribers. I hope that you enjoy yourselves tonight and this weekend. I have a bit of work to do myself, but again, we'll see what happens now because Indiana's up by 9 right now. Looks like we may have a game 7 by all indicators, but we'll see if OKC can make a comeback today. So that remains to be seen. But thank you very much for joining me here on Talk Live. Back with a Diddy recap next week, and then more and more things to follow, matters to follow, including, let me see what we got here in the background. We have such things as, just to let you know, going forward. Oh, that's not the one. It's that one. Okay. Yes. So we have such things as Ben Shapiro lying about Derek Chauvin. We have 30 minutes of women begging to approach men again. Older women are jealous of younger women. Jordan Peter challenge against, I believe it's, yes, indeed, Megyn
and
Kelly.
90%.
And that's a little sneak preview there.
In court documents.
We have, again, woman forced to pay $300,000 to the one and only, what's it now? Yes, Trevor Bauer. We still have yet that to go through. That would happen a few weeks ago. And also, finally, this understanding of the regarding, world. Yes, indeed, Neil deGrasse Tyson v. Thomas Sowell and the debate on transgenderism. All these things coming forward in the next couple of weeks here on Talk Live, so do stay with us. A lot of heated topics to discuss, as well as other things that may come up on the timeline here on YouTube as well, and on Twitter, as well as TikTok, as well as Instagram. So I am abreast of all these things, and I will keep you abreast of things for you here on Talk Live, including, and most importantly, the Diddy trial. So thank you very much for joining me here on Talk Live on IG, YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment on the road to 1,000 subscribers. I'm leaving. I'm getting out to watch this NBA Finals right now. That's the reason why I did it this early, and the reason why is because my girlfriend wants to stay up and watch this thing, so she can stay up, and now she can get her beauty rest. So anyways,